welcome back to the show. And I wanted to take some time today to address a question I get a lot. Can I stop working if I've not been paid? And a very lawyerly answer is it depends, right? You would think it'd be like, you don't get paid, you don't have to work. Not so clear. So first, it depends on what type of contract you are, residential or commercial. We're talking about residential contractors first. Now, can you stop working when you haven't been paid? Again, it also depends. What does your contract say? If your contract doesn't have a provision in there that says you can stop working if you're not paid, it's questionable whether you can or not. So the best way to address this is to have a contract that clearly states, if I'm not paid, I have the right to stop working. And so what this usually looks like is when you're going through your contract on a residential contract and setting up your milestone payments, the provision we usually put at the bottom is hey, we're going to send you an invoice when we reach this milestone. You have 5 days to pay it. If it's not paid within 5 days, we have the right to stop working until you pay the draw. And you can even spell it out further, like if you haven't paid the draw within the draw within 30 days, we have the right to cancel this contract. Right? So being clear about, number one, when is payment expected? I know you have milestone payments in most of your contracts of when it's expected, but it's not always clear to a homeowner that you've reached that milestone. So what I always say, build in, hey, I've reached this milestone. We're going to send you an invoice. You have 5 days to pay. Otherwise, we're going to stop working. Just being very clear and upfront about when payment's expected and the fact that you'll stop working if you're not paid. That way, if you stop working, if you haven't been paid, it's not a breach of contract. If you don't have this in your contract, it could potentially be a breach of contract if you stop working, even if you haven't been paid. So let's be clear about the fact that if you're not paid, you are going to stop working, right? And so what do you do if you're in a contract that doesn't have any language? I would start acting as if. So let's send out an invoice. You reach the milestone in either the invoice itself or in the email that send out the invoice, put payment is expected to be within 5 days. If not, we'll stop working. So again, you can kind of modify the terms or let people know what's going to happen if you don't get paid. That way they, expect when payment's expected. And the other thing too is that if somebody's reviewing the contract and realize that 5 days is not going to be enough for them, they can say, hey, it's going to take me at least 7 days to get the draw from my bank. So can we change this? And then you'll know what to expect because, you can plan accordingly. So having this information up front, like I said, the job of your contract is to manage expectations. This is a huge one. You have to manage the expectation. If you don't get paid, you have the right to stop working. And just being very upfront about the fact that that happens, that you're going to stop working. And like I said, leaving it in there, if it's more than 30 days, you have the right to cancel the contract if you want. You could also put other things in there, like if it's been, we stop working, and then at that point, you're going to have to wait to get back on the schedule. Right? If we miss a payment, we stop working. I don't know when the next availability is in my schedule, but I will put you there. But I'm not going to be responsible for any delays for your delay in payment. Again, just being upfront about the process, what it looks like, how it's going to happen, and I'm not saying you can't work with your clients, obviously, right? If they say it's going to take them a little bit longer, you can be patient. I get it. But there is a point, right, that you're going to stop working if you don't get paid because you can't go out and work for free. That's not fair to anybody. So that's my residential contracts. Residential contractors, make sure you have it in your contract that you have the right to stop working if you haven't been paid. Now, my commercial contractors, generally speaking, especially in a commercial subcontract, and so when I'm talking about commercial is the subcontract was the GC hires the sub, and there's a commercial subcontract. Most of those subcontracts have what's called the pay when paid clause. And what does that mean? So the general contractor is hired by the owner, right, to do the work. And the pay when paid clause says, hey, subcontractor, I don't have an obligation to pay you until I'm paid by the owner. So you as the sub could have done everything perfectly, everything right. But if the owner doesn't pay the general contractor, you're not entitled to be paid. And you don't have the right to stop working. So what does that mean? It means that potentially if you sign a contract with a pay when paid clause, that you're not entitled to get paid potentially, and you have to keep working. So can you cash flow this whole job without getting paid? That could potentially happen in a pay when paid contract because you really have, as a subcontractor, have no control over when the owner is going to pay the general, right? There could be tons of things that go wrong between an owner and general that have nothing to do with you, but that will absolutely stop your payments, right? So if you're signing a subcontract that has a pay when paid clause, make sure that you know that it's in there. Make sure you have cash flow enough to cover the project if things go wrong, and that you can keep working so you won't be in breach of contract. Because if you stop working, and the owner hasn't paid the general, then you're in breach of contract, and you can get terminated and then get sued. So it's not, and when you get terminated, it's not you just walk away from the money you're owed. You could potentially be responsible for whatever it cost the general contractor over your contract amount to finish your scope of work. So it's not just the money that you're owed. Potentially it could open you up to huge amounts of liability, right? So in most states, Texas is one of them. We'd have to look state specific to make sure if you can prove, or that the owner has paid the general and has not paid you, there are ways that you can stop working, right? So most states have what's called a prompt payment statute, meaning that, or some kind of payment statute, that if the general has been paid, they have a limited amount of time. Like in Texas, it's 7 days. They have 7 days to pay all the subs once they've been paid. Otherwise, they're in violation of the statute, right? So there are situations, if you know that the GC has been paid and hasn't paid you as the subcontractor, that you can send a certain letter that would get you the ability to stop working if you haven't been paid. But that's something that I would definitely look into and have an attorney look at before you decided to do that, right? Another great workaround, a pay when paid clause, if you haven't been paid, is start the lien process, right? I'm not saying you have to file a lien. I'm just saying you have to, make sure you're doing the steps to protect your lien rights in your state, and send a notice that says, hey, if I don't get paid, I'm going to file a lien, right? And that notice would go to the owner, the general, letting them know. And you'd be surprised, most of the times it will shake some money loose for the general, who would then pay you, right? So sending a lien notice once this becomes an issue is a great workaround or a pay when paid clause, as a way to get paid, even if you've signed a pay when paid clause. So just be aware that these remedies out there, that these things are out there, that these pay when paid clauses you'd have to cash flow the entire project without being paid on a commercial project, because technically under the terms of the contract, you're not entitled to be paid if the owner hasn't paid the general. And like I said, that's something you have no control over and really have no insight to if that really happened or not. So these things can become very dangerous. I've seen them take out companies that couldn't afford to keep working, and they weren't paid, and technically under the contract, they weren't entitled to be paid. So know your lien rights in your states. I have done tons of episodes on lien rights in different states. I have Subcontractor Institute, which has the rules for filing liens in all 50 states. But that is a great way to protect yourself and make sure that you do get paid. It gives you a security interest in the property. So, still the answer to, can I stop working if I haven't been paid, is it depends, right? If you're a residential contractor, make sure you put it in your contract that you have the right to stop working and on what terms and what happens if they don't pay. If you're a commercial contractor with a pay when paid clause, make sure that you have enough cash to float the entire project without getting paid, and know your lien rights. Hey guys, if you have any other questions, feel free to reach out on social media, and we can address other topics. If this has been helpful, feel free to share. Thank you.